Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Christian Mundigo. Christian, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Now, you've made us, as is the tradition here on this show, you brought a little cocktail, a little end-of-week adult beverage for us to enjoy. What have you whipped up for us?
Basically, a Negroni variant. Fetcha Bruto, because it's more interesting, with some Spanish gin, Magnusson, and a really nice vermouth. Antica Formula. It's, I forget who makes this stuff. Carpano.
Yeah, it's all so delicious. And in addition to whipping us up a cocktail that I'm dying to try, you brought in extra glasses for me to taste each of the ingredients, none of which I'd had before. And they're all super delicious. So shall we? Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming in, Christian.
Thank you.
So good. So you live in Rhinebeck, and somebody said that you bought land here way before you ever lived here?
Yes.
How did that happen?
God, I just started hating the Hamptons.
You what?
I started hating the Hamptons.
Oh, God.
I literally took a map and drew a 2-hour radius from Columbus Circle by car, by train, Amtrak, commuter trains, major highways, minor highways. And then I populated on different sports that I did in cultural places and universities. And then I put my parents' house, which is north of us in Vermont, and everything said go north.
Okay.
And I checked out a whole bunch of other towns, and then came to Rhinebeck for a friend's wedding. They're not divorced. And
what year was that?
99.
99. And so you came to Rhinebeck and liked it.
Well, it was perfect. You could take a train, get here, first stop on Amtrak. You could have your friends go to Poughkeepsie on Metro North, so they can't complain I can't get there. You had little, windy roads, a.k.a. the Taconic, or you could be savage and take up the thruway. It's pretty good.
Nice. And so did you buy a piece of land, or you bought a house? Or?
So I bought a piece of land and promptly showed it to my dad. And we're sitting up on this hill in this field, and he looks down to the barn and says, "Who owns that barn?" I said, "I think it's sold to somebody else." And he's like, "You should buy that barn." I said, "Why? It's more money." He goes, "If they can't fix it up, it's an eyesore." I said, "I'll just plant some trees." And he laughed at me. He pointed at a big maple and said, "That's been there for 50 or 60 years, and it's barely hiding any part of that barn. Go buy the barn." So I bought the barn.
So you had a piece of land and a falling down, or at least in disrepair, horrible barn in the property next door.
Yep.
And so there was no place to stay.
Well, there was actually. The barn had been used as a large animal veterinary clinic.
Oh, wow.
The office of which was then rented out to a lady who didn't like people but liked dogs, and raised dogs in a dog kennel that was attached to the side of the barn. And previously, they had fixed the loft of the barn, the hay loft, into kind of squatters' quarters for CIA students. It was pretty nasty.
And nasty in what way? I mean, students are habitually really untidy.
Well, we had to get a Sawzall, cut a sofa in half, and defenestrate the sofa because it wouldn't fit out the door the room it was stuck into. And I don't know whatever happened on that sofa.
You wearing gloves, I take it. And
we were wearing bandanas.
Yeah.
And promptly then hosed ourselves off. No, but you go up there and every weekend you'd be sweeping the fly carcasses into the corner kind of thing. It's pretty gross.
Right. And you'd go up there with whom? With friends? And
yeah, we developed this thing. We'd go up with a bunch of friends and sometimes a bunch of little plants in a tray in the back of my Volkswagen Golf. And the friends would assume a tool for the weekend, and we try to do a project, and we all do a end of the weekend photograph of the group of us with our tools. A friend of mine had said, if you go upstate, take your social life with you. And we co-opted them to do cleanup and housework.
Take your social life with you. And so you did. You brought everybody up. And was there a tool that you got every week? Did you have your own particular tool?
No. If it moved and shook, I probably used it.
And what were the tools that got used most on these social life weekends?
Rakes, shovels, chainsaws, ride-on tractors, sawzalls, just stuff.
So it's not just interior work. You're doing exterior and...
Oh, yeah.
Which must have been a nice break from whatever you were doing in the city at that point in time.
Yeah. No, running a trading business is all about numbers. It's all about being in your head, and being able to bash something feels pretty good.
Right. So one of the fabulous release and counterpoint. And what kind of trading were you doing at that point?
At that point, I was running a big interest rate derivatives platform.
I'm sorry, a big what?
Interest rate derivatives platform.
Okay. Is there a plain language equivalent of that?
Yeah. For practical purposes, we traded bonds.
Okay. But what is an interest rate derivative?
It's a synthetic bond, so you're trading the cash flow value of the bond. It's kind of in your head.
Okay. But it's in somebody else's head too.
That's right.
And there must be metrics that everybody agrees upon.
Yeah.
So they're imagining the same thing in their heads.
Exactly right. So we all have common paperwork and documentation, and you clear it through an exchange.
And how did you make money trading interest rate derivatives? How did one make money trading that?
Two
Fantastical.
ways. You either speculated and bet the market right, which we did a lot of. And the other one was clients were using the product to manage their interest rate risk. So companies borrowing money or investors wanting to take positions would do transactions with us, and we would take a small spread in the deal.
Okay. And that would somehow, spread out the risk that they had and other interest rate.
Yeah. So you'd do this derivative, whatever that might be. You'd hedge it with futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. You'd do some other derivatives with other people. You'd buy or sell some government bonds or other bonds and manage out the risk over time.
Look at you. I like the way you hold your hands up. Bob, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
No sweat. So how the hell does somebody get into that kind of stuff?
Today or back then?
Yeah, how did you get into it?
Oh, I failed.
You failed.
Yeah. So I went to college to be a doctor. And
in which college was
Cornell. So I went to Cornell to be a chemistry pre-med, and went in with kind of a year's worth of credits and took all these advanced courses and completely imploded. And with imploding my GPA and trying to figure out who I was, with some good drinks.
Yeah, the drinks are delightful, Kristen. So wait, let's go back to freshman year at Cornell. You go in, you'd taken all the AP courses in high school, I'm guessing, and you place out a bunch of stuff. You're feeling pretty fly. And what happened? I mean, I suspect that something bigger happened than just bad grades.
Yeah, it was a combination of I'm a first-generation American, was raised from the age of 9 overseas until I came back to the U.S., so there's a lot of where do I fit socially, culturally in the country and as an American. A lot of it was in my household, there was 3 paths to success, and medical doctor, PhD, and PhD. So to follow one of those 3, you of course take the most advanced courses you can, because your dad also went to an Ivy League school and got a straight 4.0 GPA, and the pressure was up. So I took the hardest courses I could and didn't do so well because I was perhaps drinking too much and not studying hard enough and not studying the right things.
Right. And so you went to college, and like many freshmen, you're like, hey, this mixer is a lot more fun than differential equations or organic chemistry or whatever.
Yeah, let's just say this. I had a funny situation. I was taking math, calculus, and I was helping engineers learn calculus who were taking the same calculus course I was taking, but in the engineering school. And I was taking it in the arts college. And the engineering calculus made complete sense. I could teach it. And I went to my prof, and he's standing outside the faculty building or whatever the school building, and he's juggling, and he stops and he basically says, "Look, to get a good grade in my class, you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. When you take the test, you can answer these questions, but you can't answer those questions. And if you don't answer these questions, you're just not going to do well. But I can teach you how to juggle." So he taught me how to juggle, and I got like a C- in that class. And then a year later, took a couple courses in engineering school and got like an A+. Theoretical versus applied.
Oh, okay. And so you switched. Did you graduate with a degree in engineering?
No.
Oh.
I tried to create a major that would put me into what at that time was a thing called the Office of Technology Assessment. Consider that kind of DARPA for civilian life. And for which I got an undergraduate degree in government with a minor, if you would, because Cornell doesn't have minors, but concentrations, a minor in law and society, and about half my coursework between the engineering school and the Johnson School of Business.
Okay. And did you, at what point during this interesting college career, did you start to have an idea of what you wanted to do with all these disparate concentrations and majors and minors and stuff?
I had this romantic notion that I like to fix things. So when the OTA sort of ceased to exist.
When the what ceased to exist?
The Office of Technology Assessment.
Gotcha.
I thought consulting would be a good thing to do, or corporate finance. Graduated out of Cornell and had successfully had 250 some odd rejection letters and no job. So it became, I got to pay off my student loans.
Do you still have those letters?
No, they got burned.
They got burned. The poor
they
things.
were burned intentionally.
They were burned. Okay, and intentionally. So you did you burn them one by one or all at once at some point further down the road?
I like large conflagrations.
I'm sorry, what?
I prefer a large conflagration.
Yeah. And where did this burning happen?
Beach.
On the beach. In the beach in the Hamptons?
Yeah.
Which you mentioned earlier. And how old were you when those things got burned?
22 or 25 or so.
25. So it's a few years after you got them. And you had them. Were they in a folder or a suitcase or a big cardboard box or a duffel bag?
Well, actually, literally, they were on my, for about a year, they were on my desk with a rock on top of them as a sort of reminder not to get fired.
A reminder not to get fired. You're like, it's tough out there, see? So toe the line.
Exactly. No, they just sat in on my desk, and then they end up on a shelf, and then they end up being a bad reminder. And I thought, well, just excise the demon, and that was that.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I have rejection letters, but I don't think of them as a bad reminder. I think of them as a reminder of perseverance and sort of intrepid nature and optimism.
Well, I mean, I got a job, I did well, and I just didn't need to have them around.
Not a job you did well, looking for a job right out of college.
Right.
And so what was it like? I mean, so eventually, and I totally get this, your perspective on it. That also makes perfect sense to me. But what was the impetus to take them out there instead of just throwing them out? I mean, it's such a ceremony to torch them on the beach in the Hamptons.
I think somebody just suggested it as kind of, let's go do this. It'd be kind of fun. And we just did.
Right.
And it started a tradition of burning taxes.
Burning taxes?
No, I don't throw away my old taxes. I burn them.
That's good. Do you have an urn where you like a bunch of urns? One for rejection letters, one for the ashes of old taxes.
No, we have a thing called a hobo bin.
The what?
We have a hobo bin.
Oh.
So you go to the hardware store and you get those galvanized metal garbage cans with holes in them.
Yeah.
That people use for burning leaves.
Yeah.
Well, we have one of those by my barn. We use them for burning taxes.
How long do you keep hold of the taxes? I mean, do you file online now?
No. My tax guy does.
You what?
My tax guy does. I try not to get involved.
Right. So there's less paperwork to burn.
Right. But all the paperwork I need to give him to get there.
Right. And it's probably more fun than, shredding.
Yes, definitely.
And is there a ceremony surrounding these burnings?
No. Sometimes.
Love that. No. Here, cheers. Have a drink more of this. Oh, no. Sometimes. And what is the ceremony like? Does the wife and kids take part?
No, Braden doesn't take part, but the kids do. So usually one of the guys will be like, "Can we burn something today?" And what I do is I store all my old files in those metal job boxes you see at construction sites.
Yeah.
I got a couple of those up in my hayloft in my barn. That's since been cleaned up.
Those things are heavy, those boxes.
Yeah. But so in those boxes, I keep like little file boxes and file packets of, different deal memos and stuff like that. And every now and then.
Red welds and, just big folders.
Yeah. And so when the kids want to burn something, sometimes they're like, "Okay, I got something to burn."
What a great father. And how old are the kids?
Almost 17, 14, and 10.
And 17, 14, and 10. And are the 3 boys, 2 girls, and a boy?
Boy, girl.
Boy, girl. The youngest is a girl.
Thank God.
Thank God. Yeah. And what was that like? Did you want a boy for the first child? And lots of guys, they want a boy. They want the family name to carry on.
I'm pretty agnostic about whether I want a boy first or a girl first, as long as the kid was okay and healthy.
But did you sort of want one of each?
And my wife wanted 3 boys, and I thought she was barking mad.
Right. Is she?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right. My work here is done. You're welcome, Braden. Thanks for tuning in. Well, so that's great. And one of your kids, we were talking beforehand, is going to this, is doing this thing with the Rotary, a trip to Costa Rica.
Yeah, no, Fisher's going to. He's part of Interact. They go to Costa Rica for a week to do service work. I think he thinks he gets out of school work, but he's got to catch up. But they go down and help build schools and playgrounds, and they get out of the family and have to work in an environment they don't know, and it's a wonderful thing.
Right. And there's a fundraiser for that tonight, I happen to know, at the Rhinecliff Hotel. It starts at 7 p.m., and it's open to anybody who wants to come in and donate the entry fee.
Yeah, everybody's listening to this should go.
Yeah, everybody listening to this should make their plans. 7 p.m., Rhinecliff Hotel, food, DJ, silent auction. And the bartender I also happen to know, is none other than Radio Free Rhinecliff's producer extraordinaire, Jen Hammoud. Take a bow, Jen. She's taking a bow.
On my flower.
And so your kid is going down there for how long? Is it 2 weeks?
A week.
10
days.
What a blast. And has your kid done anything like this before? Which kid was the name of this?
Fisher.
Fisher, okay.
No, he's never gone off and done a community group service week before.
Right.
But I think it's a fabulous thing to do.
It's a great thing. Rotary's been putting this on for a long, long time. The Interact Club.
Yep.
Which is
now, the community events that Rhinebeck has for kids, they're really impressive. Rotary, the Interact is really quite impressive. The Rhinebeck Exchange for music, it's out of this world. It's absolutely fabulous. Couldn't recommend it more. Both of them.
Right. And so all 3 kids are in the Rhinebeck Public School District?
That's correct.
You happy?
My father sat me down in a overpriced Manhattan bakery.
When was this?
I don't know, 6-7 years ago, pre-COVID.
Uh-huh.
And he's an academic and an educator, and he looks at, and I went to private schools, obviously, overseas. He's like, "Are you sure you're spending your money well in that private school your kid is going to?" And, I was like driving a Porsche into the East River every year.
At least with 3 kids.
And quite frankly, there are things that Rhinebeck has that no private school in Manhattan can do. Or, like, for example, Rhinebeck Exchange is unique. It's wonderful, great for musicians, great for singers. People want to share a culture and a community tradition that's been going on for 50 years, basically. The fact, for example, that a public school has Rhinebeck Crew, another wonderful program, unaffordable in most places, They bring the cost down, and all these kids get out on a sport, which is very much about not who's the best athlete, who's the best scorer. It's how does that boat work together? How do they get in sync? How do they not be sort of in their own head about themselves? It's really about the boat working well and the coaches. You can imagine a coach gets 40 kids to sit down and meditate at every practice.
Wow.
They're building great human beings by doing that. Right, interact, walk down 9G and see kids wearing jackets and they're cleaning up garbage and going to people's houses and helping people out. It's great stuff.
Right.
And the school is, beautiful campus. Teachers are generally very good. And the things they may or may not have that you have at private schools, you can supplement with all the colleges around here. And no private school in New York has got the kind of facility Rhinebeck has.
Right. So you said they were in a private school down in the city, and we skipped over so much time. At some point, after Bachelor Christian buying this property and a decrepit barn in Rhinebeck, at some point you met a woman, had a couple of dates, and asked her to get married and had a bunch of kids. How were there details of that you'd like to share?
Well, it was not quite so simple. It kind of looked like this.
That's what makes good radio.
We met in January. I got a strange phone call in August. This was the first summer where people are coming to this place in Rhinebeck.
January what year?
2000.
Okay.
And in August, I got a call from my boss who's in London saying, "What are you doing for lunch on Tuesday?" It's a Thursday. And what French guy is calling me in August to have lunch on Tuesday? Much less going to fly to New York and not have me go fly and kiss the ring. So I quickly realized that he's got a problem that he needs me to solve. It's not that hard to figure out. And that's moving to Japan and fixing our Japan platform. So I went home that night and said, I got this call, blah, 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 blah. We might have moved to Japan. And Braden's response was, ugh. Tuesday rolls around. My boss is, when are you going to lunch? When are you going to lunch? We're standing in front of the elevator. He says, "Do you know why I'm here?" I said, "Yes." "You want me to move to Japan?" He goes, "Great. Now that we've got that done, when can you go?" We hadn't talked more than 15 seconds. So we go to lunch.
You got to appreciate the efficiency of that.
Well, we all knew what was going on. And about 3/4 of the way through lunch, we're kind of negotiating terms. They said, and we had this complication, which I had this girlfriend who you're going to do whatever it takes to make her okay coming to Japan. Whether you got to fly her in and out every month or every 3 months or every 4 months, I don't care. Hire the headhunter for her, whatever it takes, or I'm not going. And so he said yes, and that was good. And simultaneously, one of Braden's...
This is the woman you met in January of that year.
That's the one, yeah.
Braden, somebody.
One of Braden's best friend's father gets us out on his boat. And he was one of these people who had extraordinary charisma. And basically tells Braden, "Well, go to Japan. What's the worst thing that happens? You come back with a broken heart and you sleep on our sofa." And so she came to Japan.
Was she a little bit hesitant? She's like, "I've known this guy like 8 months, and now he wants me to move to Japan."
Well, so first, she had already lived in Japan. And at that point, she still spoke Mandarin and had lived in China and was trying to convince me to convert this into a Hong Kong job, but it was a Japan job that you can't do out of Hong Kong. And she jumped in with both feet. We moved and had an extraordinary sort of kind of dating on steroids because we were living together overseas and sort of creating our life.
And where were you living? Somewhere in Tokyo?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
We were living in a neighborhood called Nishi-Azabu, which, she's so good. She found an apartment that, okay, how to say this?
This is your girlfriend at the time.
She's amazing. We had an apartment for a family of 4 with 3 terraces, views across Tokyo and over the Rainbow Bridge, which is kind of like saying I had views from across Central Park all the way to the George Washington Bridge. It was spectacular.
What floor were you on?
The 9th and 10th.
Oh,
It's a duplex. That really didn't suck.
yeah.
But that's the advantage of being a guy with a complicated girlfriend who's replacing a family of 5 French people.
Complicated. She doesn't sound so complicated.
No, she wasn't, but she didn't have a visa, so she had to fly in and out.
Oh, I
and,
see.
You know, all the things of me not saying, yeah, sure, marry me before we go to Japan.
And so how long did you all live in Japan?
2 years.
And how was the longest she could stay before she had to leave and then come back in?
90 days, more or less, yeah.
And how long did she have to be gone then? Like 2 weeks away, and then you can come back for another 3 months?
Well, let's see. We did a 3-day weekend down to Sydney one time. We did like a 4-day weekend to Bangkok, and those both worked. She skived off to the U.S. a little bit in the summer for a couple weeks. She got a trip to Bhutan, which wasn't bad.
Oh, wow. Have you ever been?
No, God. I went, she went to Bhutan, and I went to Guam and went to scuba dive. That was awesome.
In Guam?
Well, just outside of Guam.
What's that?
Just outside of Guam, yeah.
Uh-huh. And what made the diving there especially awesome?
There's a place called Truck Lagoon,
Uh-huh.
which was kind of the U.S. vengeance for Pearl Harbor.
Oh, boy.
And the wreck diving is just, it's very, very sobering because you will run into bones and skulls and stuff like that. And, you know, they're military freighters and destroyers and things. But it's truly extraordinary diving from a sort of technical quality point of view.
Right. And this bay, I mean, it's in the Pacific Ocean, right?
Yeah.
Guam. So some points the water is crystal clear, other points it's pretty murky.
Crystal clear.
Nice.
Beautiful.
And how deep were these wrecks?
Pretty shallow. I mean, from memory, it's now almost 18 years, not 20 years. We were diving in 60 to 100 feet.
Uh-huh. And Braden was certified as well?
No. Braden was in Bhutan.
Oh.
I was diving with the Buddyman.
Oh, I see. I see. And when did you become certified?
Oh, gosh. College. Best college job ever.
What was that job?
Well, we got paid to get certified. And then we were hired by a grad student who was studying the breeding habits of lake bass in Lake Ontario. And in November, so sort of a week or so before Thanksgiving through to the 15th of December-ish, we'd get up on a truck at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive to Lake Ontario, put on dry suits, and do these 10, 15-minute dives, or maybe probably like 5 to 10-minute dives, where you're laying bass egg traps on the floor.
Bass egg traps.
Yeah.
What do they look like?
Think of them as flat Tupperware containers with rope connecting them, and you stick rocks between them, and when your hands can't move because they're frozen, you surface and warm up.
And how deep was this?
I was very shallow, 25, 35 feet.
And what's the water temperature on Lake Ontario in November?
38, 40.
Oh,
It's cold.
right.
But you're getting paid $15 an hour in 1987.
Right.
From 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, so you get overtime. And they're feeding you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's awesome.
And how long did you do that job?
Every day I could.
Wow.
No, it was pretty intense. We probably did 8 days and 3.5 weeks. 4 weeks.
And you got certified like by them right before this?
We knew about my roommate and I knew about the need, so we certified in the summer before.
And where'd you do that?
Lake Cayuga.
Lake Cayuga.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Murky, nasty stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll basically walk in and all the silt just lifts up all over you and you can't see 2 inches in front of your nose.
Ugh.
But in terms of technical diving, those 2 experiences are just great foundations.
Right.
So it's like learning how to ski on an icy hill.
Right. But also, I mean, the wrecks in Guam, 200 feet's pretty deep. Was that
100 feet. 100 feet.
Oh, 100 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Still, that's deeper than most recreational divers are going.
Mm-hmm.
And did you need additional certifications for that?
No. One of the oddities of the dive license that I got, did a pro dive instructor's license. And that's in a weird, it's not PADI.
Okay.
So they're much more technically conscious. So the big dives places respect it more, if you would. Everybody on that group got nitrox, which helped in Guam because the downtimes were longer.
Which is a more nitrogen-rich mixture with oxygen? Okay.
Yeah, safer.
Especially for depths.
Yeah. Especially for time more than deaths.
Oh.
And then some guys are doing wreck diving courses, but it's pretty well trod ground. I had done cenote diving in Mexico, and I had done other sort of technical things, so I kind of got a pass on a lot of it.
Right. Nice. And when's the last time you've been diving?
Regrettably, my honeymoon.
Oh.
Is that right? I think so. I may have dove twice between them, but I don't recall.
Nope. All right. Honeymoon, which takes us back to January 2000 when you met your future bride.
Yep.
If I'm remembering the facts right. How did you all meet?
My childhood best friend called me up and said, "Hey, you done hating women?" I'm like, yeah. What do you want? And
Wait, which childhood best friend, Tim?
Tim.
Okay. Spoke to him today.
Oh gosh.
Oh boy.
And so I said, sure. He said, I got this chick I got to meet. Let's go shoot some billiards or something. And so I showed up at a billiard hall, and she was there, and we started to talk. She, by the way, was set up by her college best friend's childhood best friend. So there's
So it was a double setup.
it was, yeah.
Which, I feel like those things rarely end well.
They really do.
But
they did.
But this one has.
It has.
So you met. It's a setup. It's awkward. But somehow there was electricity. And
Oh, yeah. Well, Braden, you've interviewed Braden. She's an extrovert. I'm deeply introverted.
you met Brady. She sat where you're sitting right now
Yeah, I know.
for 58 minutes of glee.
Yeah. Trust me, she was more relaxed than I am now. But we were playing billiards, and at some point you do the stupid questions like, where are you from? Blah, 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 blah. What's your favorite movie? She says The Princess Bride. I say, oh, it's mine too. She quotes a line from The Princess Bride. I quote the counterpart line, and we go back and forth.
Oh, come on. What were the lines?
Oh, it's like, I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
not sure I want to be that anymore. Or we only have to believe with two bluff. Or, gosh, what are they,
Billy Crystal and Carol Kane.
Oh, God, I love those. Yeah.
So
Fabulous.
good. What a
Fabulous.
great movie.
Bring in the Brute Squad. I am the Brute Squad. No, if I got going, I could go on for a while.
Yeah, go on.
And then Braden's like, oh, well, what do you do? And I heard she mentioned she lived in China and she's into Chinese art and theater. And I said, well, I collect Chinese and Asian art. Her response is, so what is that? Molding takeout containers on your coffee table?
Molding what?
Takeout
Oh,
containers.
gee, nice.
And I'm like, okay, no. How about, I collect Burmese Buddhas and Japanese tonsurs and stuff like that. And so we started sort of building this parallel sort
Because
of world.
she was in the Asian arts world.
Well, she was in the Asian, she worked for Asia Society,
Okay.
and she had studied in Asia. And my parents collected African art and pre-Columbian art, but no Asian art. So I collected Asian art, so I didn't have to do the same thing my parents did.
Nice.
So-
Which has been like a motivating factor since you were 18, sounds like.
Yeah, well, individuation comes late,
Or 19 when you left pre-med.
always. And so we just sort of found all these parallels. And,
Right.
They're parallels that, how to put it nicely, it lets you knit together as opposed to have identical common experiences. So there's more growth, and it's been a good experience.
Right. How long you been married?
21 for almost 21 years.
Almost 3.5 years.
21
years. Well, congratulations. It's a good long time. And it sounds like it's a lovely marriage.
Yeah, no, I like it. She's great.
So after 8 months, you said, baby, I went to bat for you. They're going to find you a job in Japan. And what job did they find for her?
They didn't.
Oh.
I can't blame anybody but Braden. I think she realized that being in Japan under the conditions that she was there was pretty unique. And so she really maximized the full immersion in the Asian experience.
Right.
And I'm very glad she did. We didn't go back to Tokyo until this year, which was an incredibly emotional return. But she studied Japanese language. She studied a lot of Japanese culture. She did a lot of traveling in Asia. Met a lot of very interesting people who've been long-term friends. And in a weird way, if she had gone off and taken a full-time job in Tokyo, the whole Japan experience would have been far less texturally rich than it was.
Right. What a blast. Should go out and explore, and then on weekends, often, I'm guessing, grab you by the ear and say, I got to take you to see this.
Yeah, pretty much.
What a fabulous experience. And is it still that way after 21 years of marriage, that she's out finding fun new things to do and grabbing you by the ear?
Well, she is the extrovert.
Yeah.
So she can go to a party and talk to 100 people and walk back and know everything about their lives. And I'm far more likely to talk to 3 people in the corner and discuss and argue about some kind of minutia about something that's not too personal. And then she'll say, what did you talk about? And I say, I have no idea.
We talked about derivatives.
Yeah. Or...
And so is that your MO? You go to a party, get a drink, and sit in the corner?
I don't know. Is it on a party?
What's that?
I'm looking at Jen saying, is that my MO?
When it's at your house, you're great.
No, no, it's not my MO to go sit in a corner, but I tend to look for... I'm not good at small talk. So I will find a couple of people I can talk with, and we'll have a conversation until it kind of feels it needs to evaporate, and then I'll move on to the next one.
Right.
But
you only have 20 minutes left here. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting for me.
Yeah. Is it? Is this sort of like not your character to sit and answer questions like this?
No. The party thing.
Oh, the party
thing. Being around 100 people for me is just exhausting.
Right.
For Braden, it's completely invigorating.
Right.
So I manage it down to the size I can take, and I walk out of a good intellectual debate feeling wonderful. If I have to do small talk, I kind of want to hide under a filing cabinet in the corner,
Right.
So.
Well, that's good. Well, so tonight you're going to a 100-person event.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good cause.
That makes a difference?
Absolutely. No, come on. It's a great cause.
It
Costa
is.
Rica, building schools, putting playgrounds together for kids, being exposed to a culture that you don't know and conditions you don't know with your peers. It's a great cause, and any amount of discomfort is worth that.
So the great cause makes it easier for the introverted you to be there in that space, having mostly small talk.
Well, I look at it this way, Norm.
Yes, Chris.
You'll have worn me down by the end of this hour. You'll have lubricated me, and therefore my resistance will be lower, and I'll just go with the flow.
Well, I'm not lubricating you. You're lubricating me. And cheers again. This drink is really delicious. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
And thanks again for being here. So where was, I'm trying to follow the timeline from 2000, moved to Japan. How did you all get engaged?
It was a bit tragic. We were scheduled to come back to Braden's cousin's wedding in Ontario, if I remember right. And I booked I could be mixing things up, but I booked a resort up in the Adirondacks. We came back to the U.S. And I thought we would get engaged at this resort called The Point. And that'll be that. It turns out to be that our reservation started on September 12th. And unfortunately, September 11, 9/11 happened the day before. I was supposed to be in the South Tower, and I had canceled going to that conference. A lot of my friends were in the towers. The gentleman who convinced us to go to Tokyo, or convinced Brady to go to Tokyo with me, he perished in that. So Herman perished in that. And
I'm so sorry about that.
We ended up having a mourning process instead of getting engaged. So, no, it really sucks, but it's what it is. And a few months later, I decided we're going to get engaged this weekend. So I went about.
And you'd bought a ring.
I did buy a ring.
August
Actually,
of 2001.
I at that point had an engagement necklace.
Interesting.
Because every time we talk about rings, what Braden wanted and what I thought she would want, what Braden articulated and what I thought she wanted didn't map up. So I got her a necklace. And we spent like all day Sunday going to these different markets in Tokyo, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I like had my head up, and I was anxious. And then I cooked her dinner, and I got down on one knee, and I had hidden the necklace in the bookcase, and I asked her to marry me, and she was kind of confused for 5 seconds. And
this is in your apartment with
in
your
our apartment
fabulous view
in
in
Tokyo.
Tokyo.
And she said yes, and that was that.
And what do you think those 5 seconds of confusion were?
Oh, that was me stumbling around trying to grab the thing out of the bookcase because I was like,
I see,
awkward and anxious and
right. And you didn't have the traditional prop for a proposal.
That's right. So I had this like thing in a box,
like a puka shell necklace.
Exactly. Well, in this case, it was a little emerald with some diamonds around it and stuff. But
sounds lovely. So it took her a couple seconds to figure out, wait, this is a legit proposal.
Yeah.
And then she said, "I'll get back to you."
No. She kind of laughed at me and said yes.
That's so sweet. And at this point, you'd known each other a year and a half, 2 years? Was it towards the end of your time in Tokyo?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
How sweet.
Yeah, it was nice. It was good.
Yeah. And did you have that necklace when you thought you were going to be proposing in the Adirondacks?
Yes.
Okay. And so your honeymoon, which you referenced earlier, where was that?
We rented a sailboat in the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, nice.
And, or she said we hired one. And the skipper and his wife were both dive masters. And Braden had taken scuba diving lessons as a sort of surprise. So
in Tokyo?
No, where did she take it? I think she took them to like some pool in Manhattan or something during some vacation or something.
Oh, right. Like in the Upper West Side YMCA.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a surprise. It might have been Tokyo.
That is so sweet.
So we get on this boat, and I had smuggled a couple good bottles of wine on board, and do
you remember what the wine is?
No, it must have been like probably Bordeaux.
Okay.
It would have been Bordeaux. Actually, probably would have been an Australian Syrah of Bordeaux, I'm pretty sure. The skipper's wife, who's the chef, only drank Sprite. So, well, he's like, "Don't give her any wine. She's gonna put Sprite in it, and don't do that." And he's and he didn't drink, so we had some lovely wines and went scuba diving. It was great.
For a week or so?
For a week.
And where was the scuba diving in the Caribbean?
It was, well, we also stayed for a week in a place called Byres Point, which no longer exists, which is Tortola.
Okay.
So we're diving around Tortola and BVI.
Right. Gorgeous. Beautiful.
Spectacular.
Beautiful diving there.
Yep.
And you're staying on the boat
Mm-hmm.
and going ashore for events and
Yep.
discos on Tortola. And
Yeah, not really. No, not a lot of discos, but we had a couple of Jimmy Buffett kind of guys out there that were
Jimmy Buffett
good
guys.
fun. And, at that point, between the overseas planning, the chaos of the wedding, it was very much, I think she slept 3 days.
oh,
Just
bad.
straight 3 days.
Egads. So where were you living when you got married? Were you still in Japan? Were you back stateside?
Tokyo. I mean, London.
Oh, London.
London.
So you went from Tokyo straight to London?
Yep.
And who were you working for?
It's working for a French bank, BNP Paribas.
Oh, Paribas.
Yeah.
Sure. Know them. They sponsor the French Open.
There you go.
Yeah. Huh. And you had been with them in Tokyo and with them in France. So I'm guessing they were a pretty good employee.
Oh, New York, Tokyo, London.
Uh-huh.
Back to New York. Yeah, they were pretty good.
Yeah. And what exactly were you doing for them? That was this.
In Tokyo, I was running the Japanese derivatives platform. In London, I ran the European long-term interest rate platform. I ran Asian rates and Japanese interest rates.
Okay. And when did you leave your last staff job working for somebody else?
2014, April.
April 2014. And who were you working for at that point?
Same firm out of New York.
Okay. And you left, is that when you founded Eckert Hook Partners? Did I get that name right?
Holdings.
Eckert Hook Holdings.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you were doing for your own company, Eckert Hook Holdings, the same things you were doing for BNP.
Not at all.
Oh,
No, the trading world is kind of like professional sports. It's super intense and you kind of burn out and it's a bit of a young man's game. The stress damage is very, very high. It's very much an in your head game. Money is numbers on a screen. It's not a door. You can't touch it.
right.
It's not shareable. I can give you $100 and you can spend $100, but you can't share $100.
Right.
Right? You can't share the effort. There's no the formation process unless you're an insider to the minutia is not shareable.
Right.
So I always liked sort of physical things as a counterpoint and a balancing. And I had other things I wanted to do when I left. So I created Eckert Holdings as a vehicle to house the things I do. I joined a small M&A boutique as an advisor.
Mergers and acquisitions.
Yep. And the quid pro quo on that was I would provide capital markets and expertise to their clients. And they would tell me how acquisitions or mergers were done in the making of that sausage. So that was one activity that I was doing. I had found a real estate developer out of Aspen that very much liked to sort of do buildings that were in sort of the feel of the community and not disruptive to the community.
Uh-huh.
And we ended up, he's also Duke alumnus. We ended up buying a couple of properties in Durham and kind of reset the downtown of Durham. And then did about 20 real estate investments in New York City.
Wow.
And a couple small fintech investments, some that have gone belly up and some that are good.
What exactly is fintech?
Technology related to finance.
Okay. And what's an example of that?
Oh, God. Any of these guys who are telling you to buy insurance online, the online real estate platforms, all those are fintechs. What they're doing is they're bringing technology to finance.
Okay.
And in theory, democratizing it that way.
Right. In related news, I saw today something about like Trump signing an executive order to really encourage Bitcoin trading. All of those things. I know Bitcoin is sort of a brand name.
So I have a friend of mine, and we agree not to talk about crypto because
Right, crypto.
for me, crypto is I just don't like this stuff.
You don't like it?
No, look, I look at it this way. The purpose of crypto is a money surrogate in much the same way that gold is. Gold also has commercial value in the sense that you can make jewelry out of it. It has sort of certain non-tarnishing properties that use it a lot in industry. But crypto, being an unregulated quasi-currency, sounds to me like a way to get around the rules, and at its essence,
Right.
has a value that's mined out of a combination of energy and computing power. But what's the commercial purpose of it, and what's the social purpose of it? I don't know.
Right. I mean, for people to make money, I guess. But, I mean, you say it's not sort of rooted in anything like gold, but neither is the U.S. dollar anymore, right?
That is, the U.S. dollar is not convertible into a physical entity, right? But it is convertible into all sorts of goods and services in the public domain without any questions asked.
Right.
And therefore it serves-
crypto's convertible in a lot fewer places.
Well, and the idea that, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it's so volatile, you don't know what it's worth.
Oh, well, that's for me, and it's nice to hear that you don't like that. I don't like it for the environmental cost. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The electricity and the water and the environmental cost of worldwide crypto.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. So do you work with any sort of like environmentally conscious firms at Anchored Hook Holdings?
Does my commercial and capitalistic endeavors involve environmental do-goodery? Well, no and yes. I own a relatively large piece of land in Rhinebeck, which I keep in fairly good condition. We've aimed to, this has nothing to do with Anchored Holdings. We've eradicated most of the invasives from it and whatnot.
And what were they? What were the invasives?
Oh, it's everything from barberry to ailanthus and a couple other ones. But now we have, unfortunately, now we're getting this Japanese grass, which I don't know how I'm going to get rid of. And I'd love to get rid of more deer because they're massively damaging.
Right. When you say woefully large, how big is, what's the borderline between reasonably large and woefully large?
Back up, give me context.
You said you owned a woefully large?
Oh, no. It's only 100 acres, but
Okay.
no.
Well, so that must be fun.
Yeah.
Also, sort of a counterpoint to your desk job.
Yep.
Being out there and ripping these things out. How do you get rid of ailanthus?
So ailanthus has a stress response, which if you stress it, they will send out rhizomes. And a mature female ailanthus will generate about 100,000 seeds in a year. So it's very pernicious. So the way that the DEC recommends you do it is you actually have to poison the tree.
What do you use for that?
So the way I like to do it is I will do a stab cut or drill a hole. So do a stab cut with a chainsaw, drill like a 1-inch hole, and put about a quarter cup or an eighth of a cup of Roundup in the hole.
Okay.
And the glyphosate will kill the tree.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, Roundup, which has like a really bad reputation.
That's right.
I've had ailanthus, places where I've lived, and asked a professional tree hugger, total like environmental do-gooder, like, how do I get rid of this? And they whispered to me, Roundup.
Well, the truth is, it's if you have a 480A.
Oh, for what?
A 480A is the woodland management exemption on Texas, which we don't have. But if we had one, And when they do the forestry survey and they find ailanthus, and you're required to eradicate it, if you do not use an herbicide, they will revoke your tax exemption.
Wow.
Because not doing that stresses the plant and then will create more of it more
Right.
aggressively.
So what percentage of your acreage is open or wooded?
It is about 65% wooded.
Okay. And may I ask, if you don't have to answer these questions, why do you not get that tax exemption?
At one point, I wasn't able to figure out whether getting the extension was taking money out of the community's pocket or not.
Right.
And I didn't want to take money out of the community's pocket. And the extensions they last a decade, and I was not sure if I wanted to do it for a decade.
Right.
In retrospect, I should have done it,
Right.
but that's life.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
But what a beautiful answer. I just love that. You didn't want to take money out of the community's pocket.
Yeah.
And when did you all move up here full time?
So, we moved up, I think, March 14 of 2020. COVID refugees.
Wow. March 14th, 2020?
Yep.
Well, it's like amongst the first COVID refugees.
Well, you know,
Right.
you got 3 kids, I tell you, when your wife says, I do not want to be stuck in Manhattan for 2 or 3 weeks or more in an apartment with 3 kids who are going crazy,
Right.
and you've got an escape hatch, you take it.
And by this point, you had more than just a decrepit barn. You had a house on this
Yes.
property?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you still have the place in Manhattan? Do you get back there occasionally?
We do. I love it. It was a labor of love getting this apartment done. And it had been a kind of, to have a loft that I wanted to have designed to my needs was a dream for 12 or 14 years before I did it.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to get rid of it. But I probably financially I should get rid of it because I'm not using it enough.
Right. But, you know, when you have an emotional connection to real estate, it's hard to let go.
Very hard.
Right. Well, guess what? We're running out of time.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, baby.
Now he's getting warmed up.
I know. I love that. Christian Mundino. Oh, I wanted to ask this. You said you were your parents were, you were the first generation
Yes.
here in the U.S. Where'd your folks come from?
My father's Chilean of basically Russian Franco-Danish heritage.
Oh, boy.
My mother is German, Dutch, Bolivian, Indian.
Well, thank them for making you, and thank you for being here. And thank Matt Rosenberg, Jen Hammoud, and Patricia Wind of the Epicurean for making this show happen.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a fabulous Friday and a great weekend.